Today, we have the awesome experience of welcome a fabulous guest that's helped me out tremendously here with my home selling clients. And I was going to introduce her, but I think the introduction would be better from her. So Hollie, take it away.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning. My name is Hollie Gyarmati. I'm with HG Makeovers Interior Design.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So are you a typical interior designer, or are you a home stager, or kind of what do you do?
I'm an interior designer by trade, and that is 90% of my work. However, I have a passion for buying and selling and the entire real estate industry. So I love to help people get their homes ready to sell and help them settle in. And so I have a lot of relationships with real estate agents like yourself, where I come in and help you stage homes that are lived in for listing. Yeah,
I think that's great. And I think, kind of to set the stage a little bit, no pun intended, is that, a lot of times that, as a real estate agent, I'm meeting with clients and we see a home, and obviously my goal as a real estate agent is really, it's three things: is to get an offer that the seller wants at a price that they want and a timing in terms that makes sense. And obviously, as an agent, we typically go in for the highest price possible. There's different circumstances where that may change. But that said, I'll walk into a house that isn't use the right word, the L word, that's lived in, and people are living there. So we can't have it necessarily be, a museum-like or a stage, although that might be the goal. It's just that it becomes, we've got to make it ready. And all that said is that I can't come in and be I can, but I'm maybe not as tactful as you, but I can come in and, I can't recommend taking stuff out. In a perfect world, we're often, my clients are going to sell a home and then move out, or it's empty, which we don't have much to work with. So they're coming where it's lived in, and they come in and, we can't start over with staging. And sometimes that doesn't make sense. Maybe there's not budget for it or else. So when you come in, what do? You're seeing a home that's lived in. It's not necessarily going to be staged because for a reason that's not appropriate. And maybe it doesn't even make sense for the situation. But when you come in a home, I guess, what do you do? What's the first step?
Well, most often agents will pull me in to be that final walkthrough before the photographer comes in to take those photos. And I really feel like I can have the most impact at that exact phase, because the client they've worked hard, they've done their to-do list, they've changed the light bulbs, and they're feeling really good. And then I know that you as the agent have said, okay, you're going to want to remove the clutter if you have areas, or clean these spaces out. You have a really good checklist of what you do to prep them, but they're feeling really good. They've done their part. The house is clean. Everything's looking the way in their mind it needs to look. And then I come in and sometimes I'm like the bad guy, but I'm coming in with that professional vision as an editor, where I'm looking at all the details that you're not seeing, that the client's not seeing. I'm looking at it through the lens of those real estate images, what is going to show up in those images or the video. I know. And so I'm coming in, and through each room, I'm just doing that final edit of, you know what, let's remove this rug because the floors are going to look a lot more cohesive and flow nicer if this rug's not in the way. I'm fluffing pillows. A lot of times I'm removing things that just don't need to be there. I'm shifting. I'm looking at the focal point in the room. I'm looking at all the things that I do in my design world that you're just not going to know. So it's just that little extra touch that makes a huge difference in the photo.
Difference. And I think what we have seen, and you know, I've talked about on the clients that you work with, is that it makes a difference between not only days on market, how quickly the home's going to sell, it makes a difference on pricing, because first impressions matter. And I think that's where you made the assumption that everyone does their homework. We do give a checklist, and sometimes, depending on the situation, our sellers are doing it, or sometimes you might be catching them a little bit, early on in that process, right? But the whole goal, like you said, is to get them ready, show ready with the ready set sell console. So they're ready for photos and video. What is the biggest challenge you see walking into a home that a homeowner has to address?
I think personalization that I'm seeing in the home that really doesn't need to be there, or it might just not, it might show better if they're a little more prepared. So I like to remind agents that when you're talking to clients, um, you want to remind them that they're taking their home and they want to transform it back into a house.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Well said.
buyers want to walk into that home for a showing and they don't care. They don't want to see who's living there. They don't want to think about who's living there. They want to envision it being them living there potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So if they walk in and see Dick and Jane's marriage, wedding photo still hanging in the foyer, and all the family pictures and the magnets and the to-do notes on the refrigerator, you feel like you're invading someone's home. So I really think it's the just removing the personalization, and it doesn't have to go away while the house is on the market, but just for those photos, and then setting them up for a quick plan of when you're evacuating for those showings, just go through and remove those few things we touched on, have a quick stash way to do that, because it really does help. In my opinion.
It does. I mean, I think it's we've seen that before and after, it really does work. And I think that's where, instead of coming in, which I think your approach is so good with this ready, set, sell consult, is that instead of coming in and saying, this is the way it has to be, meaning you've got to live like this without your photos, without your whatever it happens to be. You're just getting ready for photo and video ready, and then find a system, whatever that happens to be, to stash that when the showings come, when the open houses happen, etc. And I think that's where, and also your tact. I mean, what kind of pushback do you typically get, or do you get?
People rarely fight me because you've told them I'm having my interior designer pro stager Hollie come through, and they've already got the mindset of they're welcoming me because they want me there. They know, they trust my opinion. They trust you. I get to, I'll always touch base with you and say, Jeff, you essentially are my client. Is there anything that you think maybe they missed that you want me to focus on? Because I then am able to be that kind of bad guy, but it's in the end, everyone, it's like a team effort, right? I love, you're always there. I walk in, the client's ready, they're ready to help. And people are so awesome. They've been so great if there's a lot of times, like you've mentioned, it's really just that edit of removing things that make a difference. So I'll ask them, is it okay with you if I remove some things? And how do you want to do this? Should I just put them on the floor outside of the room? And they're happy. They're happy to do it because they're excited about your plan for them in this listing, and they want it to be successful.
How a couple of things. These are somewhat random questions.
Yeah.
How often are you recommending painting? Just in general, in terms of if you're going in to do 10 of these, are you recommending painting at all, or is it typically too late in the process?
It just depends on, I would say I come in, if an agent is bringing me in early on, then I think painting will come up many times, where I might just see that guest bedroom that was painted a bright color for their kid or teenager, and then they moved out and it became the catch-all room, and it's okay, that might be worth it. I really try to work with what people have. So every client's different. It's about, okay, what are the resources? What do we have to work with? And let's make the most of that. So what's the timeline? Do you have a couple months? What's your budget? What do we have to work with? And I assess all of that and then work from there.
How long are you typically taking in the consult?
I can usually get in and out within an hour.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It depends on the size of the home.
That's great. So you got an hour, you're doing the stuff right there. I guess the other thing that too is to know is that you're not just saying, here's a list of things to do, although you will give that list.
Yeah.
You're actually saying, let's do it. And you'll you'll do it. And obviously I've jumped in with you and
The
we'll,
sleeves are rolled up and
yep.
the shoes come off and it's like, yeah, let's just do it now. You and I have moved chairs. We've
Well, and you're doing the heavy lifting. Well, I shouldn't,
we're
yeah, the heavy lift, but you're doing, because I think, which is a little bit different a lot of times when you're coming in with the staging, right? Especially when things were moving so fast, and in many price points it still are. But if you're coming in and giving things that are get done within that hour, gets done immediately, photos and video are happening, you're also providing not only providing a service to the agent and seller, you're actually also now expediting shortening the timeline to sell. With the staging, it might be things like where you're only going to have the staging in for a month. Maybe you can't get it there right away. It's going to be a more expensive investment. And in the end, you've lost a lot of time there potentially. And, and it's a little bit atypical for a designer to come in and actually do more than, design. And, it's almost like you're an interior designer and a implementer, because you're actually implementing the design right there on the spot.
Yeah, I love doing it. I mean, it's part of, I think, why I offer this service is because I've had my own crazy experiences with buying and selling and moving and having to stage a very large home, 10 years ago when my kids were all very young and I had a really messy Springer Spaniel running around. And I remember how stressful it can be as the homeowner to know that I have to clean my house and get it ready for a showing and evacuate and make it look like we don't live there. And I think I just have like that empathy and compassion for people going through it, where I'm like, I know I can help.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's where you come in, where many not all, but some designers will be so separated, right, from the situation that they forget that ultimately people are living there. That's the big thing. People are living there and going to live there, even though it's photos and videos, even though they're selling the house. You need to make it look like it's going to be a house, not a home, which I think a great way you put that. But in the end, people are still living there. What recently, it maybe even something that we've done together or stuff that you've done with other agents, what is the biggest before and after kind of transformation or result that you've seen with your work?
Okay, so just recently, I did a large home, gorgeous home in Rochester for an agent, and the client, her husband had already moved to Florida. She had been there working. She had her checklist, and the photographer was coming, within a day. And I was that final walkthrough, and I walked in, and she had this collection of live plants sitting in her foyer, all clumped together. Like it was like they were welcoming me. And she knew I was coming. So she had them all there because she didn't know what I would want to do. And so she was really sweet and worked with me. And I spent, that full hour and a half with her. And it was so rewarding because she was with me, and not only was I placing the plants and making sure that they would survive throughout, will this plant be okay if we put it here? But it was adding the pops of greenery for the photos. But then she was watching me just like tweak little things, like she had beautiful furniture, but she did a really good job of having everything she owned ready for me to kind of shop at home. So it was just a matter of me saying, this can be so much better if we use these pillows here. And I moved some accessories around, and just those little things. I mean, I was able to take some images just right there on site where I took the picture, showed it to her. I said, this is what your professional photo might look like. And she was just blown away. She goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe, how did you do that? How do you know how to do that? And I'm like, this is just, this is a lifetime in 25 years of being a designer that, I know, like, I'm confident in what I'm doing, and I know what can be done. And it's not about buying things. It's really just about that editing and working with what you have.
I think it's a great example. And I think it's working with what you have is big, because in the end, I've seen a lot of times where people have tried to change the home either through staging or whatever else, and now you've missed the mark. All you're doing is trying to make it as blank a canvas as possible, while giving the buyer some at least ideas, some food for thought where they can think about and envision themselves living there. Well, that's great. Do you have any idea kind of what that related to price wise or selling frame in your example?
You know what? That house sold. It hit the market and sold within a couple days.
That's awesome.
It was a great success story for the agent, and I was so happy for the client, and she was so happy because she wanted to join her husband down in Florida and have the sale not take. But I will tell you, this group of agents, they do a great job in preparing for listings, and they have a great team of people, and I'm lucky to be part of that team, but they were ready. The
Yeah.
house was clean, it was sparkling. It's all the things you do as well, Jeff. It's like really focusing on, let's put the effort in now so that we can list confidently and not feel like we missed the mark or missed the boat. Like, you're listing in full confidence that you've done everything you can do.
Yeah. And I think that's, I think especially in this market now, is preparing the house for sale is key at preparation, whatever it happens to be. It's just absolutely key, because the market's not as forgiving. And, there's always a 6 months lag, right? Buyers know immediately when the market's changed, right? Because they're out there looking for homes. They know exactly what it is. But sellers, either through its cocktail party conversation, wherever they hear, they may not come realize that 6 months later. So there's that lag.
Yeah.
So it's our job as agents, if we're going to try to push the prices, everything's got to, we can't miss, especially in this market today. I'll give you two more examples that you did recently for me and kind of show you how it works. So one was a condo that you did in Adams Woods, and a great condo, townhouse style floor plan, fabulous clients, very willing to do ways to get it sold. And I think that's also a big part of it too, is that, it's a collective team effort, including the home seller, because they're going to have to buy in and make these changes. But in that condo, you took, well, I'll tell you, what did you do? Because we actually took it to the market right after or right before kind of fall, right in the fall. Yeah. So we had a lot of fall decor, and we also were kind of we're going in this, I think if I remember correctly, some Thanksgiving decor. Yeah. But what did you do with that? And then now I can kind of finish the rest of the story.
Look, for that job, I just remember the editing was really focused on removing accessories. She had a lot of decor, seasonal decor, but also just, I could tell, everyday decor, and so it was a lot of just removing. And the homeowner was great. She was working with me, and I was creating little piles out in the hallway outside of each room. Yeah. Yep.
And they were great, because they actually were in, they dove in. You were creating the piles, move some stuff around. Not a lot of moving of furniture, but really that was more editing than anything else. I think a couple of ads, if I remember correctly. And this was a client that was, they're living there. They were watching grandchildren, entertaining, living their life, and they also coming up with holidays. So you did a great job of balancing that. And I guess the rest of the story, so to speak, is that for that condo, when it hit the market, it was fall. So it can be maybe a quieter time of year on the holidays. But the interesting thing is that when people are looking at those condos, not always, but sometimes they're coming from a much bigger house. So what they need is they need to be able to envision themselves, how do I fit all my stuff in this condo? And if the condo has already a lot of stuff in it, you can't make that connection, right? They won't be able to see themselves moving from their big house in Bloomfield Hills or wherever to a condo in Bloomfield Hills if they can't envision getting them stuff.
Right.
So, and that floor plan is not huge, but it did have a basement. All that said, when you edited the stuff out, it was able to let the buyers envision it. And I think too, is that there was some very unique floors. If you remember, the flooring there was very unique. And by doing some of the editing and just moving it out, those floors were able to really pop, and without really moving stuff, just kind of, and made it look bigger. And there was still a lot of stuff in there. But it was all presented in a very great way. The photos came out great. And in the end, it's one of the most popular floor plans in Adams Woods, but it really sold because people could envision themselves through your work. And at the end, we sold that condo, and the time frame to sell was, pretty straightforward. But the thing is, we sold that condo for $102,500 to be exact, more than the exact same floor plan. That one closed. So that one closed just right on the same time. So the bottom line is that we were able to put this condo in its best light. It was $102,500. It's a big difference. And the other one we did recently together was a house in Birmingham. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, this house was so charming, as a lot of Birmingham older homes are. I just loved like being a part of that one. And what I remember most is her rugs needed to get rolled up for the photos. She had some larger area rugs that were in kind of unsuspecting spaces, right? It was like she had an area rug in her kitchen, in the corridor of the kitchen. And I just remember feeling like, oh my gosh, we've got these gorgeous hardwood floors. If we could just get these rugs out for the photos, how fantastic and expansive will these images show? So that was my biggest thing for that home, that, I wanted to, like, that was my thing.
I'm glad you went there, because that's exactly what. So the house was, like you said, it was super charming. 1925 house, so 99 years old, almost 100-year-old home. And then they added on the back in 2008. So great house, great location, but they had these beautiful ebony hardwood floors that were, to your point, they were covered up. And some people, when they saw the hardwoods, either they loved them or they did not. And again, that's personal preference. But and that's where we're not coming in and recommending those kind of changes. You're not doing that kind of stuff. What we did, which is interesting, and I don't know if I even told the rest of the story, is that we did what you recommended, right? And you also went through and pillows and moved stuff and edited stuff, and you did more than just say remove the rugs, but you went through your process, got the home ready, super cooperative, awesome owner. I mean, she was just outstanding. She's just a joy, and get all the rugs out. Well, now when we started removing some of those rugs, some of the floors underneath there weren't great. I mean, ebony hardwood floors are not easy to take care of. And we started removing those rugs and it was like, oh gosh, look at this. And it wasn't pretty, but got the rugs out, it looked a lot bigger. So now when you're taking the photos came out great, and you're not going to see the imperfections in the floor. And nothing bad, right? It was just because the rugs have been there for so long, they needed some treatment. Well, rugs removed, looks a lot bigger, shows off well. And the photographed and videoed, awesome. And it was one of the best reels that were done. And I think in large part because of the floors. But the truth she was able to polish the floors several times, but it was in the middle of winter. So she had to keep polishing the floors. Some of those rugs went back in just because of the time of year it was. But in the end, it was okay because we got the photos and videos for what we wanted, which is to show off the floors. In the end, that home sold for, in Birmingham was interesting because there's a lack of homes priced in that kind of $600,000 to $1 million range. This was 2,500 feet, which is an interesting size because it's not an older, 50s bungalow ranch in Birmingham. And it's also not a new build where it's, 3,500 feet. So, but that said, that sold for, almost the top of the market price. In an area that's kind of in between, and that's where kind of there's some softness in Birmingham. So long story short, that one, I personally think that one sold for more than, I won't say more than market, but without that kind of stage, it was very tough for a buyer to envision what would, how to really to see themselves in there. And that's what your consult did.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. It's so hard. I get so wrapped up in my design projects. I don't get to circle back and ask you about those. And that just means a lot. That makes me want to keep going.
Well, that's awesome. And I think, the thing is too, is that
I'm a believer in it, but it's challenging as the designer to sometimes like have that lane, but I love that there is value in that.
There is, and some of the value is, some of the value is very easy to ascertain, right? Where it's like you can quantify, you can say. Some of it is qualitative, where it's better, it sells quicker, and sometimes we can't always put a number on, but it always works. And I think that when the market was when it was super robust, maybe call it 2 years ago at this point, there was, a lot of times buyers are trying to get to the market so quickly because they were trying to buy something on the other, or sellers trying to get to the market so quickly, they're trying to buy something on the other end. And, maybe this step was they wouldn't buy into it. We were seeing that. And, and in the end, it was able to work but maybe we would have gotten a better result. But now the market's more what I call, it's more balanced. It is. We're now taking the time to do, it's to do everything right, and to go through the process. And today, again, if it's a vacant home, don't need to do it, right? And that's a different discussion maybe as it relates to staging, but any home that's lived in now, I really wouldn't take one to the market without this. I just think it's that important. As a home seller, I think I'd rather see a home seller invest in a consult. Again, we're paying, depending on the compensation package our clients pick, we're paying for it, most of the time. But it's who's ever investing, it's such a big return on investment. It's like, why would you not do it? And much better off than trying to guess what a buyer wants, right? This is just trying to let the buyer envision what the home could be, as opposed to trying to tell the buyer what it could be through a new paint color or an expensive renovation. Not that things don't matter, but if you're looking to, especially in this market, where you're looking maybe to reduce budget that you're going to do to put in to sell a home, I think this is the easiest thing to do with the biggest bang on the buck. Bang for your buck.
And then the other point too is that you're able to offer your clients my service, and then they get an introduction to me, and then realize that I'm there to support them through their entire move. So I'm not just a one-time stop in. They might, if they like what I'm all about as a designer, which, my tagline is making busy beautiful, and very much like I'm in and out with that consult, that's how I operate in my design world as well, where I'm always wanting to make the most of what each client has to work with, and be very focused on them, their lifestyle, who they are, their budget, their timeline. It's not about me and what I want it to look like. It's about what it should be for them. I've had some of your clients call me back once they make their move and I'm designing in their new home.
Well,
So
that's a testament to you. I mean,
that's my reward in the partnership with you, is it's marketing for me, but I'm able to, share my skills, help everybody, and it fits really well into my business plan too.
Yeah, which is great. I think, and that's where there's a little bit of misconception, maybe what designers do, where a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to get, even as it relates to staging or preparing the home for sales, I'm going to have to buy all this stuff. But when you're coming in and saying you're working with the existing stuff, they learn to love your style. And of course, in their new home, they engage you because they're comfortable with you and in your approach.
Yeah. It's a win-win.
Awesome. Well, it's been an awesome discussion. So for anyone here that's taking a look at this video, what's the best way, or what's the easiest way to get a hold of you?
Oh, the best way is go right to my website, hgmakeovers.com.
Okay.
And you can find me through Google. Check out my website. It's pretty straightforward, and I have some pricing on there, plenty of photos, and you can reach out to me right through the contact form on the website. And send me an email. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, Hollie, thank you for your time, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks,
I love
everyone.
our discussions always. Have a great weekend, Jeff.
Thanks, Hollie. You as well.
Okay, thanks. Bye.